The satisfaction of finishing your pedal board for the 38th time.
But let's talk about what you brought over to the States, and what's this?
This is a F-bass VF4. I don't know how I found them. It's all over the internet. What's his name? Scott's bass guy, and then I think actually it's really weird. I'm a really big fan of Steve Swallow, this jazz bass player, and he had this bass. I could never pick what it was, and I always thought it was Federa because of the F, but it was a Fluent.
Oh, okay.
So I dropped by in between Toronto and Chicago, and just somebody had an appointment set up. They were going through like all these basses, and I was like, "Hey, do you mind if I play?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, sure." And I was just shredding away, and the guy's like, "You're pretty good at bass." I was like, "Oh yeah, you know." And I said, "I'm just did a gig in Toronto," and apparently when I left, the painter was a big fan. He's like, "Man, why didn't anyone tell me Donny was here?" So I spoke to them. They're like, "Hey, you know, if you," I was like, "I'm pretty interested in ordering one." So they hooked me up with an artist deal, and I spoke to Marcel, who's the Felonetto, and we spec'd out this bass, which is, I kind of wanted to have like an 80s high-end, you know, custom bass. So
yeah.
like the two-tone, gold hardware. It's got, I have D-tuners on everything.
Okay.
It's even got Don embossed in the back there, which is pretty cool. I got the fancy 5-piece neck with the stringers, ebony board. This thing is like, it's probably the best live instrument I've got. So I've got
really.
Well, because it's so like.
Imagine because it's taken the place of all those other instruments.
Well, it's just
versatile.
It's funny. Like for recording, it's cool. Like these pickups are like super clean. The preamp on this thing is amazing. For recording, I like a little bit of dirt. So like if I got a P bass, I've got like a 66 P I'll use.
Okay.
If I've got my Stingray, I've got an 82 Stingray. And jazz, I've got a really nice 77 jazz with the Marcino pickups in. That's the one I did the demo on. And so they're all cool, and they all like do very specific things. And it's funny, like I don't get in shit from my wife for buying new basses because she's a musician. I'm like, these are all different tools. You know,
yeah.
Like, you know, a carpenter has 8 different saws that do. And she's like, yeah, I get it. So
yeah.
They all do different things. But live, like a Stingray is cool, but you can't. I do a lot of pick muting. It sounds like shit. If you want to do some slap, the Stingray's got that very particular sound, which is cool. It's a little thin for me. If you want to do the Bernard Edwards thing, of course, it's perfect. But then this thing can do kind of all of it, like obviously having the PJ set up. I predominantly use it as a P bass this time around.
Okay.
But it just cuts through, and like if I'm playing and I'm not quite happy with the monitor mix, I can just change this. It's a really transparent preamp on it. So
can you show us a little, kind of maybe the key sounds that you get from the bass?
I mean, I'm
just using different controls.
Yeah. So like, I mean, this is passive. It's going to be, and then I mean, not my favorite sound, the PJ.
Yeah.
But then you can also, I'm learning how to roll them off, and then once you start putting a bit of color in, so I kind of crank everything. If I guess I want to get a bit of a that's kind of my Stingray version. And then a nice dirty my P bass, and
yeah.
It slaps. It's super, like I think with the ebony board as well. It's super, like every note is even. So live it's just, and it's perfect. And all the sound engineers in Europe were like, this bass is great. Like played out front, they're like, it's just so clear, so crystal, like so easy to mix.
Yeah.
So I mean, these guys, they know they make a good bass. Yeah. And you know, like I'm gonna go and order a jazz bass to match this. So I was gonna get a fretless and neck. So we're gonna match the neck pockets. So I might make this into a fretless, then I might make the touring bass then. Because I kind of miss the jazz bass. P basses are great, but so yeah. But this is what I've brought. It's kind of the one that does everything.
What strings are you running?
These are D'Addario NYXLs.
And the D'Addario NYXL.
But they're D'Addario strings, and I've been using their since forever, and I love them.
D'Addario strings as well.
D'Addarios.
Right. D'Addario. I've been using D'Addario. I'm a fan of D'Addario.
Started using these D'Addarios. I like the D'Addario NYXLs.
These are D'Addario, and I got the NYXLs on here.
I noticed through your catalog of instruments that you do use, you don't try to make an instrument do something that it's, I don't want to say intended to do, because that's all we're trying to do as musicians with different colors we have. We try to get what we can. But I noticed that you find the strengths of that instrument and then you go with it rather than trying to, you know, square peg into a round hole.
Yeah, no, there's no point forcing. Yeah, it's no point getting something to sound like it, but it's not. And that's why it's like the beauty of having that array of instruments at home to record. But touring, yeah, you got to kind of make a big choice. And you know, I was, to be honest, I was like, I got this, and I was like, oh, I've got to go do a whole series of touring. I'm like, I was going through basses each week. I was like, okay, I'm taking this bass, and I'm like, oh, I'm taking this one. And I was speaking to everyone, I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not going to bring the F bass, and, you know. But in the end, it kind of won. So, I mean, I had a great, our guitarist has an Australian instrument called a Cubase, and I had a great jazz bass I got off him, but it's got clay dots. So went to rehearsal and I couldn't see anything. I was like, okay, that one's out of contention. But yeah, I'm just lucky to have a really nice, you know, group of basses, everything like synths as well, but basses especially.